Good morning, Clackamas County, and welcome everyone to this October 16th, 2024 Clackamas County Board of Commissioners policy session. Gary, what is first?
Thank you, Vice Chair West. Chair Smith is out of the office today, and she's asked Vice Chair West to chair the meeting. Chair, would you please convene as the Housing Authority Board of Clackamas County?
I will now recess as the Board of County Commissioners, and I will now convene as the Clackamas County Housing Authority.
Thank you, Chair. Joining you online is Housing Resident Commissioner Ann Leenstra. Good morning, Commissioner Leenstra.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. All right, this session today is Regional Affordable Housing Bond and Public Housing Repositioning Update. Presenting is Rod Cook, Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services, and Devin Ellen, the Housing Development Director for the Housing Authority. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. We're here this morning to give you an update on our affordable housing development and repositioning activities. As you know, we have a number of large projects in the works, and we're committed to providing you with regular updates. There's a lot to celebrate and to be proud of in this update. Clackamas County is meeting and exceeding its goals for the affordable housing bond, and we're truly capitalizing on the once-in-a-generation opportunity to leverage public housing repositioning and to add hundreds of units of affordable housing in Clackamas County. As we heard from multiple leaders at the Hillside Park groundbreaking last Wednesday afternoon, Clackamas County is punching above its weight. That's because of your support, our wonderful staff like Devin, and strong collaborative relationships we have with our 16 cities. Devin is going to provide you with updates on each of our active projects and outline board actions that will be needed between now and the end of the year to keep things moving forward.
Thanks. Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Commissioners. As Rod previewed, we have lots of successes to celebrate and some pretty innovative projects coming down the pike that have lots of moving parts. So I want to keep you apprised. Today, I'm here to update you on two topics, the Regional Affordable Housing Bond and our public housing repositioning. So it's been just shy of 6 years since the Regional Affordable Housing Bond measure was passed by voters, and just over 4 years since this board approved preliminary funding awards for the first housing bond projects in Clackamas County. Today, we have 560 new affordable homes housing Clackamas County residents. And when Hillside Park Buildings A and B close next week, we'll have another 356 units in construction. In pre-development, we have El Nido, the 55-unit family project in Lake Oswego's Lake Grove neighborhood, which is scheduled to close and start construction in June of next year. Also in pre-development, we have two Housing Authority repositioning projects, the second phase of Hillside Park and the redevelopment of Clackamas Heights. On November 13th, staff will update the board on these two projects and seek the board's approval to award bond funding. If approved, these two final projects will create a total of 450 new units, of which 245 are bond eligible. With approval of these two projects, Clackamas County's total allocation of affordable housing bond funds will be committed, and the county will be on track to produce 1,215 bond-funded units, exceeding Metro's production goal of 812 units by 150%. In your packets, we've provided a description and statistics about each of the projects. And before I move on, I guess I'll just open it up to any questions you might have about the Affordable Housing Bond Program.
Other than it's fully subscribed. I mean, all those funds are spoken for. Okay.
Once you approve the two projects, hopefully next week.
Okay.
Or next month. Okay. See no additional questions. I'll follow up on the repositioning. So as you may recall, in January, staff presented an update on progress towards the implementation of the Housing Authority's repositioning plan. And just to remind you, repositioning converts public housing to Section 8 housing. We've learned that it's just more of a stable source of funding coming through the federal government. So housing authorities across the country are repositioning their public housing portfolios. And so we presented our repositioning plan to the board and provided some programmatic options for the board's consideration. For the Housing Authority's 145-unit scattered site portfolio, staff proposed 3 paths for disposition, with approximately 25 homes being sold at affordable homeownership opportunities through a local land trust, 45 homes to be sold on the private market, and 75 homes sold under restrictions that meet the county's goal to expand recovery-oriented infrastructure. And in response, what we heard from the board was that you directed us to explore opportunities to increase the number of affordable homeownership opportunities and expand the county's recovery-oriented infrastructure. So since then, staff has been meeting with a variety of partners who provide recovery-oriented services, as well as those working on affordable home ownership, to identify opportunities and barriers to acquiring and programming the scattered site units. For both programs, a key barrier is a dearth of resources needed to preserve the units. So even though the affordable homeownership programs generate proceeds from the sale of the homes, because HUD requires that the units are sold at appraised value, there's a gap that exists between the sale price and the home loan affordable to a low-income buyer. So staff are looking into resources to bridge that gap. And as you learned a couple of weeks ago, we applied for a HUD grant that could provide gap funding for scattered site home sales located in the city of Milwaukee. And we know that Clackamas County is eligible for a direct allocation of CDBG funding to support wildfire-affected communities. And we're in discussions with the state to see if we can use those funds to provide affordable homeownership opportunities for affected households. We also know that our land trust partners are exploring a legislative concept to support this effort, which PGA will update you about next week. So all that to say, we're looking under every stone to see how we can minimize barriers and optimize opportunities to ensure the success of the scattered site repositioning program. Staff are using this input that we're hearing from partners to inform 2 solicitations that we hope to release at the end of this month. And on September 25th, the Housing Authority received disposition approval from HUD for its scattered sites, and we're finalizing our application to HUD for the tenant protection vouchers. Once approved, the authority plans to start relocating households over a 2-year period, and residents wanting to purchase their home will be given first priority. And we'll continue to update you on the progress as things progress. The next portfolio in the repositioning pipeline is Clackamas Heights. This is the 80-year-old 100-unit public housing complex located in Oregon City. In January, staff proposed redevelopment of the site under Section 18, and the board agreed. Since January, the Housing Authority has conducted a robust community engagement process that I'm personally very proud of. We formed a resident advisory committee consisting of residents from Clackamas Heights and Oregon City View Manor who met regularly over the course of 4 months, and together we developed a site concept plan that utilizes a new kind of density that's made viable by the recent addition of cottage cluster housing in Oregon City's zoning code. So we just think it's a great fit for the neighborhood, and the residents in the city are very enthusiastic about it. We're calling this new community the Park Place redevelopment. It's in the Park Place neighborhood, which both Clackamas Heights and Oregon City View Manor are in. And our plan is to redevelop the site with approximately 225 new units. And this redeveloped property will be able to accommodate all residents currently residing at Clackamas Heights and Oregon City View Manor who are interested in staying in the Park Place neighborhood. In August, we selected Bora Architecture as the architect of record, and we are in the process of finalizing the general contractor selection. Our Section 18 disposition application is currently under review by HUD, and we expect approval by the end of the month. We hope to break ground on the new development in late fall 2025. And we will update you with more information during a policy session on November 13th about this project. Next up in the repositioning pipeline is Phase 2 of Hillside Park. So we're planning is underway. HUD has already approved the Section 18 justification, and our disposition application is under review with HUD. In Phase 2, 46 units will be demolished, and at least 225 units will be constructed. Existing residents will be relocated with Section 8 rental assistance, and they will be given the option to relocate to a newly constructed unit in Phase 1 once complete. Site planning is underway with the goal of breaking ground as soon as Phase 1 is complete, so we can just roll over the construction team. And we'll continue to provide more information, and we'll be seeking that concept endorsement on November 13th, and we'll have more details about what we're planning there. And last, we have the Oregon City View Manor property. This is the second 100-unit complex located up the road from Clackamas Heights. In January, staff proposed disposition of the site under Section 18, and we determined that selling the site and investing the sale proceeds in more service-rich locations throughout the county is the highest and best use for this asset, and the board agreed. However, the board asked staff to look into providing more options for affordable homeownership, so maybe carving off a portion of the site for partnerships with organizations that do sweat equity, like Habitat for Humanity. So Oregon City View Manor will probably be the last of HAC's public housing to convert, likely in 2027, 2028. But we're keeping that directive in mind as we start to consider options for the site. The as-is sale of the 100-unit property is estimated to generate between $12 and $16 million in today's dollars. And then, of course, all existing residents will be provided Section 8 rental assistance and have the opportunity to relocate to the completed Park Place redevelopment once complete, or any other projects in the Housing Authority's portfolio. Our Section 18 application is under review with HUD, so we have all of our disposition applications in for our remaining public housing currently under review, and we'll provide more information about this property as we approach conversion. So thank you for the opportunity to update you on these two initiatives, and I'd like to just open it up to any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Looking at the packet here, could you please clarify what the actual AMI is that and that we're taking a percentage off of to qualify for different units? What is that number? What is our AMI? I see. Is it 2020? Is that 118,000? And then it says non-metro 2024 median. This is on page attachment 2. I'm just trying to make sure I
okay.
understand what we're looking at.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. The table of income
Yeah,
limits.
is that top number, the 118,000 is the median income for an individual?
Yes. No, I believe that is for a household of
Four?
four.
And then it says national non-metro 2024 median, is that 77,400, that's a household of four? Or are those individual? I'm just trying to get clarity.
Yes, yeah. Just underneath that, it says median income calculated based on a four-person household. So that's correct.
Okay. Do we know the number for an individual?
So that would be in what the median income
Yeah.
is for one person?
Yeah.
I don't have that in front of me, but I can look that up and send it to you.
And if they don't fit within the box of just being one or just being four, is that kind of prorated and adjusted based on the individual? So let's say they have two children and it's a household of three, or they have one child.
Yes.
That's all prorated and adjusted. Okay.
Correct, yeah. The table below would show, if you were a two-person household.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I see that. Okay, I know we have some questions. I'll save my comments and let my colleagues go before me. I did not see the light board light up, so I'm just going to go and start with Commissioner Savas.
Yep.
Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Well, as I mentioned before, it's been a long journey as far as the Oregon City Manor, Clackamas Heights, and the hillside, so we're moving. And I recall along this journey, in particular, was the relocation and the transition so that people who maybe were passionate about staying at Oregon City Manor in that area versus anywhere else, and, you know, all those things where people don't want to move or change. So you probably said it, but maybe I can just drill down a little bit deeper. With the timing and the phasing of all these things happening, will the Clackamas Heights be split into phases where the residents can stay nearby, similar to what we're doing at Hillside? Or is it going to be done in one fell swath?
Yeah, one fell swoop for Clackamas Heights.
Okay.
Our hope is that we can complete the units and get temporary occupancy certificates so that as units are complete, we can move folks in while construction is happening and being finished up on the rest of the site. But we'll need to fully demolish the site in one fell swoop.
Okay. So those folks, how many people reside there now today at Clackamas Heights?
It's just shy of 200.
Okay, so do we anticipating selling Oregon City Manor first? No.
No. So, yeah, our hope is that we can keep folks housed at Oregon City View Manor, and then once Clackamas Heights is complete, those folks will be given the option to move.
Okay. So do we have, for those folks at Clackamas Heights, will they be, do y'all have an idea where they're going to be destined in that interim period?
Well, they're going to be going through an interview process with our relocation consultant. So we've identified properties in the vicinity that they would qualify for. We know that a number of folks are excited to get this rental assistance voucher because it allows them to move wherever they want. Whereas at public housing, that subsidy is really tied to the unit. So we know that we have a number of folks that are excited to get their voucher and move on. But then there's also, you know, quite a few folks that have lived at Clackamas Heights for a lot of years, and the neighborhood really resonates with them. So we're hoping that, you know, we can keep as many folks in the neighborhood as possible.
Okay. My last question, you may not have all the answers, but it'd be helpful to get those, and that is, and I kind of submitted this already a week or so, 2 weeks ago, but anything you could add for all of us. If we build, let's say, 250 units at Hillside, we're going to get, and let's say 150 of those are brand new, right? Additional sites, and you had 100. Do we automatically get 150 vouchers automatically from HUD?
The vouchers are a one-to-one replacement for the public housing that exists.
Okay.
So if we, for example, if we build, you know, 225 units at Clackamas Heights, we'll have 100 vouchers to go with it. We can also apply potentially vouchers at Oregon City View Manor. If folks want to move, they can take their voucher and then project base it at Clackamas Heights.
Okay. I guess what I'm getting at is, absent new construction and relocation, how difficult is it to get a housing voucher for people? Let's say if we want to place them in an apartment building that's not a public building, right? But so how hard is it to get those? It seems like we have a pent-up need right now
Yes.
for those that are in transitional housing to get into permanent housing, but no vouchers to go around to do that.
They are scarce, and there's I want to say a 3-year waiting list for vouchers currently at the Housing Authority.
So when we say 3 years, is that 3 years nationally, or Oregon, or us, or Clackamas? I mean,
That would be the Housing Authority of Clackamas County. I know that other authorities have longer wait times.
okay. And so just, can you give me a thumbnail sketch of how many vouchers a year we might, in this, I won't say rotation, but let's just call it a constant need for vouchers. Roughly how many new ones do we get on an annual basis approximately? I'm sure it's not precision.
Well, I mean, I don't know how many we would get outside of the repositioning process where we get the one-to-one voucher. I don't know if Shannon might know the answer to that.
Yeah, and I am speaking specifically, putting the new housing and the relocation and repositioning aside, just in general, try to meet that pent-up demand.
Commissioner, thank you for the question. Shannon Callahan, the Executive Director of the Housing Authority of Clackamas County and the Director of Housing and Community Development Division. We get very few additional vouchers from HUD every year. We'll be lucky if there's a slight uptick or increase, unless we apply for specific population-based vouchers. So there are occasionally opportunities for us to get more special population vouchers, and those are usually Veterans Administration supportive housing vouchers, sometimes family reunification vouchers for families that are reuniting after being involved in the child welfare system, or most recently there has been a new voucher that HUD has released called a mainstream voucher, which is specifically targeted for folks with chronic homelessness. But those are usually application processes. So it's not like the formulary increases and we get additional vouchers. There will be opportunities for us, though, to be more creative with our use of voucher resources through our moving to work status, but that will be over a period of years and require different program implementation with HUD.
Okay. Maybe one other detail, and that is that, let's just say someone passes on and they have a housing voucher. Are we able to capture that and repurpose it? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Assuming there's not another eligible person in that household that also is part of that household with that voucher. But yes, we repurpose our vouchers when folks pass away or when they become ineligible for some reason. So those vouchers are constantly being redeployed.
Okay. Thank you. Chair, yield back.
Couple questions. We talked about the home ownership piece. This just kind of spurs some thoughts. I had a really candid conversation with the president of the Clackamas County Peace Officers Association. They're the union that represents most of the rank and file and the law enforcement here in Clackamas County with the deputy's office in a number of our cities. And I said, we were just talking about the starting wage of somebody that gets into the career field of law enforcement. That used to be, when I was a kid, you could buy your starter home on that wage. We're talking about 80% AMI, we're talking about 36% AMI, highly subsidized taxpayer money, tens of millions of dollars, and somewhat controversial type of development. And we've done a good job doing what taxpayers tasked us to do. I'm proud of, I've been in a number of these ribbons cuttings. I want a wide variety of housing for many, many people. But I'm concerned that our new deputies, they don't fall within 80%. Maybe it's a single man or woman getting up. Maybe they have a new baby on the way. They don't fall in these income limits, but they also can't afford $1,600 a month based on their salary. It's not financially really feasible for them. They told me a story of a newer deputy. He's not that new, maybe been there a couple years and loves working for our sheriff's office, but he just bought a house in Vancouver because it's 20% less than buying in Portland, in Oregon. And I just thought, gosh, I would love our deputies to feel like Clackamas County can be their home. We want them here, right? They work here, they engage here with our community, they're community members, they're such vital assets to us, and it's our nurses, our teachers, our law enforcement. Those people are vital, and they can't afford to live in the Portland metro area. And they also don't qualify for this. So they're kind of this missing population that's also living paycheck to paycheck on the economic edges. So I'm just super concerned about that population. It's so timely that we're having this conversation about housing, home ownership opportunities. So I'll go with my question first before I continue with my thoughts. But my first question is this: some of these houses that maybe we can open up for home ownership opportunities, can we target specific population like those in law enforcement that kind of are part of that population that just don't quite that couldn't buy a home in Clackamas County, but they're the type of individuals that we want to be able to buy a home in Clackamas County. But when home to start now in Clackamas County is over $500,000, and then you need a down payment on top of that, it's unattainable for many, or it's just unrealistic in many ways. Can we focus on on workforce that we need to continue to bolster here and to draw in, and programming that helps nurses, maybe teachers, maybe police officers buy that house. A lot of police officers, they don't feel comfortable necessarily living in an apartment because they go home with their patrol car, and they don't need to the whole entire apartment complex, like, announce, I'm a police officer here in your apartment complex. And so there's just a little bit of challenge housing that essential population. I didn't know that if there's any thoughts about targeting specific workforce that we want to draw into Clackamas County that needs an opportunity to buy their first home.
Commissioner, I think you raise a really good point about this opportunity with our scattered site and how we're doing outreach and who we're making sure have opportunities to buy these homes through our community land trust partners. I'd want to give a little bit more thought to what you're sharing and come back with you with some fleshed out ideas and concepts. I do know there have been past grants from the federal government for especially public safety officer home ownership purchase. I don't know the status of where that's at right now, but I'd love to come back with you with some more information on that
It's just,
concept.
I know there's other people that fall in that demographic that are wonderful families and people that I don't want to feel like have to move all the way to Vancouver to work in Clackamas County. Yeah.
With this opportunity, we can certainly target the higher income ranges, depending on what other funding sources come in. But as it stands now, I think we can go up to 120% of AMI.
Okay, and like, I think a brand-new deputy makes, depending on if they'll have a differential, at least for the first 2 years, they'll make right around, I think, $76,000 a year as a brand-new deputy in Clackamas County. They have great benefits and insurance and other packages beyond salary. I just know that, like, you could make less than that not that long ago. We can remember 20 years ago, you could buy your first house. I bought my first house at the age of 22 with a little bit of sweat equity and savings, and was able to do that. But we can't, that doesn't exist now. That just is not a reality. And I'd like us to be creative to see, people that are just right there on that income edge that need just a little bit of support, and they already give so much to our community. And those are, I think, solid. They have solid jobs, solid employment, which is a good indicator of good home ownership, and they're already very vested in our community. And maybe we can help those people out and look at programming. I know this is great. This is a very good presentation, by the way, very well done, very informative. It's good to continue to see these different projects laid out, and all the progress that you guys have been tasked with, and what you guys were tasked with. You did a good job. I can't help but be a little bit concerned about how we're tackling our homeless crisis in Oregon. Cities are required to have what's called urban growth boundaries. We all know about this. It does contribute to the Portland area being one of the most unaffordable areas in the country. It's not the only reason, but it is a factor, let's be honest about that. I know it may not be popular in some regions to say that out loud, but it's true. According to Metro, they did a draft release, I think in July or August of this year. And they proposed, they controlled the urban growth boundary. It's supposed to be like a 20-year supply. We provide enough land within the urban growth boundary to support the housing needs of the urban area. And then we kind of slowly let that out, kind of like slowly letting a balloon out, and then over time. And so over 20 years, we're supposed to have so much land available and enough of it to meet our housing needs. That hasn't really been the case, and they, Metro holds a tight control on that land supply, and in the new estimates, only 23% of the land will be used for single-family homes. Only 23% of all new housing will be single-family homes. The rest will be apartments, units, and high-density type housing. But however, if we're honest about what our constituents want, the vast majority aspire in Oregon to live in a single-family home. I think polling shows somewhere in the 80%. People would like to have a home of their own, maybe with a little fence and a little yard, and that's okay. And already more than 50%, somewhere like 55, 53%, actually do live in single-family homes in the metro area. And it's just shocking to me that Metro wants to take that opportunity away to have a single-family home from 77% of our population. If you look at the numbers and just change how housing looks and make it hyper-dense. And I don't think, I mean, we have quite a bit, and we've been focusing on that type of housing and for affordability for a reason here in Clackamas County. But we really have gotten away from offering that people that ability to own their own home. And we're talking about that maybe with a population that falls outside of this programming. But we have to be honest about if we're going to have diverse housing opportunities, where we're at with the land use and how Metro controls that supply and the type of housing they are dictating through their policies. You know, working families my age or even younger, it's just a different Oregon than it was. And we haven't really gotten serious about our urban growth boundaries, even though we have an immense amount of land and we're land rich. We're also not in threat of becoming LA and sprawling, so let's not get to alarmism because that's the next argument because I challenge urban growth boundary. We do a lot of alarmism, a lot of NIMBYism in Clackamas County, but we're taking families and making it impossible for them to have the same opportunities that previous generations have had. And I'm up here and I say I could not buy my house today if I had to buy a house today. Maybe I'm lucky and timing was different for me and the economy was different, but I think as we talk about housing, as a county, we need to be honest about other policies that are making this unattainable for our citizens. And we need to ask Metro and other policymakers and state legislators to get realistic about not denying home opportunities for families like mine. And I think that that's what's happened. We also cause people to live on the economic edges, you know, and a lot of it's policy driven. Some of it we can't control in Oregon, but some of it we can. So that's part of my concern here with how we've been moving forward, you know, as we talk about housing here. I've supported all of these projects. The voters passed this. We've done what we are tasked to do, but I think we can do better. And we have to look more holistically at this approach. It seems to be becoming much more skewed towards density and less towards home ownership and single-family homes. Martha, you're up.
Oh, no, actually, Mark is first.
Oh, Mark, you're up.
Good morning. Devin, you mentioned a shift towards using Section 8 HUD funding for some of these projects away from regional funding. Is that correct?
The repositioning process converts what we have now, the public housing program, which is known as Section 9, which is directly funded through HUD, to the Section 8 program, which is a voucher program. So that's the conversion.
Okay. When we look at the current situation with the federal budget, there's some questions about how much money the counties will be seeing coming out of the federal government in the future for housing, health, and other needs. Do you feel that in view of the long-term commitment on these projects you've briefed us on this morning, that that funding is going to be there? Or is it not a concern? Is it funded 100% up front? My concern is, do we have any kind of potential funding liabilities should the HUD program see a big reduction in funding to the counties?
That's a good question. I think one of the main reasons we're doing this repositioning is that over time we've seen reductions in public housing at the federal level, and the Section 8 program continuing to get funded. The Section 8 program is, it's bipartisan in that the landlord communities really like it because it provides subsidy that can be housed outside of a public housing unit. So we feel like it is a more stable source. We also, in all of our regulatory agreements, provide a provision to allow rents to float up in the event that the voucher program goes away or it's not able to be funded.
Okay, thank you. The other question is, these projects are ambitious, they're expensive. When you consider your initial estimates on the costs of these projects, are you seeing the bids coming in close to what you initially expected, or are the actual bids for construction of these projects coming in higher than originally anticipated?
That's a good question. It really depends on, kind of where things are at in the markets. So right now, we're seeing bids come in lower. 2 years ago, we were seeing materials skyrocketing, and bids were coming in higher than estimated. But our contractors are, tracking this stuff daily, and so they're pretty good when they're providing estimates at getting it close.
Okay, so one more question now. When it's time to let a contract out, is it at that time that you finalize funding with HUD? In other words, after you know exactly what this project is going to be, is that when that financing is finalized? Or is it done before that contract is let with a potential of a delta in what HUD might provide and what we need to build out the project?
So the HUD funding comes in the form of a rental assistance subsidy. So we typically know that, okay, we want to, have 20 units at this development supported with this Section 8 voucher, this rental assistance. So it doesn't play a huge role in the construction budget.
Okay.
It's more on the operating side that those come into play.
Okay, so you examine those two figures to figure out if you can make the project pencil out?
Correct.
Okay, good, thank you.
Martha.
Hi. Hey, great, wonderful work you folks do. It's just outstanding. And that really comes from how dedicated you are to the citizens of this county. In any case, my question is, who are some of your other partners in terms of home ownership? I know of Proud Ground and Habitat for Humanity. Are there other folks out there that are doing that kind of work that you're partnering with?
That's a good question. So we've been talking to the two big land trusts in the area are Proud Ground and Dev Northwest.
I'm sorry, what was the second
Oh,
one?
Dev Northwest?
Dev?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Habitat utilizes their land trusts through their model, so they don't operate a land trust.
Right.
And then there's a variety of partners that, culturally specific partners that work with these organizations as well. And we're hoping to, find more partners interested in the work when we release our solicitations this month.
Okay. Well, one of the reasons I'm interested in the home ownership piece is because it builds prosperity and wealth. And I know that we also need a lot of rental properties in order to house people. But if you can get people into, well, you know this, get them into home ownership, it's really probably one of the most stabilizing, prosperity building things that we can do for people. And don't we have a project that's being redeveloped in like well, I know that we've got the Habitat project, but isn't there another spot that is housing older citizens that we were involved in?
Well, there's a
Lake Grove.
project in Milwaukee that is an affordable home ownership project that just closed last week. It's 15 units. It utilizes the cottage cluster zoning, so it gives a taste of that single family home feeling. and it's the first project to utilize Metro housing bonds for home ownership. So it was kind of a lift to get all those documents together and approved, but we got there, and so now the project's under construction. We're hoping to utilize that model in Hillside Park Phase 2. So spoiler for next month, but yeah.
So there'll be home ownership in Hillside then as well. That'll manage to do that. Well, that's all I have. Thank you. Okay.
I have a question regarding Medicaid and the 1115 waiver that the state's been working on to also include housing and other supportive services for at-risk demographics and populations. How will the 1115 waiver impact or intersect with this type of housing that we're doing here? And I think that also plays into our recovery infrastructure too.
Commissioner, I think that's a very good question. Right now, we are in the early phases of implementing the waiver. And initially, in terms of rent assistance, if my memory serves correct, I believe that there's 6 months of rent assistance that's possible through the pilot program with the Medicaid waiver for those that may be eligible, and then a host of other services that folks would need in terms of wraparound and stabilization services. So at the moment, how the Medicaid waiver is structured is more of a short-term bridge rent assistance to help stabilize folks. So it could indeed play a role, it will indeed play a role in our overall system and help us make better decisions in kind of what money we layer onto a particular individual or family who may be in a crisis with their rent.
Does any of our housing intersect with like medical respite care?
In the scattered site disposition strategy, we are planning, in the recovery-oriented model, we are going to seek out medical respite care homes.
And if those clients qualify for the OHP as their primary insurance through which is Medicaid, they could utilize the 1115 waiver benefits? And is that active now? Are we looking at that?
We are looking at that. I would not be able to say for sure exactly what individuals' eligibility are, but yes, we are looking at how we can best utilize that waiver authority.
And I guess my other question is, are there certain types of housing restrictions around the 1115 waiver? Like, I'm curious about if that's available and it's part of potentially utilizing some of our new housing stock, what are those specific parameters that those patients, those clients need with their housing? Like, is there certain qualifications that need to be met? Does the housing have to have a certain type of restrictions around it? And do we have that type of housing stock available?
There are still some questions about what type of inspections or criteria, I think, for the rent assistance. But as of my current understanding, I believe it is rather flexible to meet the needs of the individuals that they're trying to serve.
And I'm just seeing, like, we have frequent flyers that are in the emergency rooms and departments, and then they're discharged back to wherever they're from, and then it's a cycle, right? And so I guess working with our hospital systems and other providers to, like, bridge that and find them that type of stable medical respite housing, and then moving them down the care continuum, I think is something that I hope we're looking at.
We are in combination with the entire H3S department.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any other questions? Mark?
Yes, I'm a bit curious about the project you mentioned that will offer homes for sale. And will the sale price of those homes be a free market price, or is part of the purchase subsidized?
So these homes will be affordable to households making 80% of the area median income. It is subsidized.
Okay.
It's a land trust model, so the land is held in a community trust, and the improvement, the house on top, is owned by the home buyer. And then with the land trust, when they purchase the home, there's an equity sharing agreement. So as the home appreciates, the equity that is realized over time, when they go to sell the home, there's a share.
Is limited. Okay, good. That makes sense.
And it's permanently restricted as affordable.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. The other question is, for one of those typical homes, what would be the amount of money that the purchaser needs to come up with or be able to get a loan on? In other words, how affordable are they? I'm just curious about this.
Commissioner, thank you for the question. It really will depend on some of the resources that we're able to bring to bear. So as Devin indicated during the presentation, we are looking at additional sources to help kind of offset that market sale price that we're required by HUD to get for the sale of these scattered site homes.
Okay, so that market sale price, that's a concern, isn't it?
It is, and so what we're looking at right now are potential resources coming from, in particular, the state, as Devin mentioned, a potential allocation of CDBG wildfire assistance for families to purchase homes, which could be used to in a variety of different ways, including to help us buy down that land cost, to do some repair. When I say us, I mean our partners. I shouldn't say us. We would not be doing this work, but our partners would be doing this work. And also potentially for down payment assistance, because, as you know, families are, generally generally need anywhere between, 5 and 20% to qualify for a traditional mortgage, and they will have to have a mortgage on these homes as well.
Thank you.
Do we have Ms. Leenstra online? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Do you have any questions for staff on the presentation? I want to make sure we got a chance for you to speak. I realize you're online with us now.
Yeah, I really don't have any questions because I've been following this very closely. But as I also sit on the Metro Oversight Committee, I'm very proud of what our housing community has done with this funding. We are way ahead of the other counties. We're showing them how it should be done because we're not afraid to step out and try something new. So, good going. Thank you.
Commissioner Leenstra, I could not agree with you more. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, a few years ago, we had a discussion regarding some of the partner arrangements in which the housing is for public use for, let's say, a 30-year cycle, and after that, it rolls off. And then we're not going to have anything, right? Those folks will still own a voucher, is that correct? Right?
As long as they're eligible, yes.
Right, as long as they're eligible. So my question is there, and this was an issue for me, still is, because I really never got closure on this, but do we have, or the federal government, or all of those housing authorities across the nation who are in those kinds of positions have a plan to renew or bring in replacement housing? And is that factored in? Mathematically, it's not factored in, right? Because you're starting fresh, right? But I'm just concerned that we're only looking at this with a 30-year lens. In this case, with the life of the lease or the life of the arrangement with the developer and the property owner.
So you're talking about preservation, right? So all of our Metro Bond projects have a 6-year affordability covenant. So, that's more than 30, but definitely something that we need to be tracking on. I think the way that we structured, for example, Hillside Park, where we retained ownership of the underlying land through a ground lease, gives us more control to, preserve those units as affordable. I think that there is a push at the state level to allocate funds for preservation, because we are seeing, not necessarily right now in Clackamas County, but other counties are experiencing properties where their affordability covenants are expiring, and they're at risk of losing those units to market rate. So, it's something we all have our eyes on, and we're working with the state on identifying properties that are upcoming, their expirations are upcoming, and ways housing authorities and partners can pair to preserve those units.
Right. And, with the housing authority's role, are we from a formula standpoint, are we putting aside funds at all, or thoughts about putting aside funds for that preservation opportunities in the future, knowing that horizon is approaching? It's not near, right, but it's down the road. And that's my concern about that, that issue about when that rolls off.
Right. My hope is that with our disposition proceeds, so it creates a hurdle, right, that we have to sell these at market rate, but it also provides income to the authority to invest into, programs like that, like some sort of revolving loan fund, or, I would love to see us do something like that.
Okay. Yeah, certainly I know it's a partnership, maybe with all, us, the state, federal government, but I'd certainly like to see something that gives me the peace of mind, everyone else a peace of mind, that come the term expiring, that we've got a plan, we got the monies aside, And obviously, if those monies are set aside, we have a window to build something in advance of that. So it's both preservation and replacement, I guess, if you want to call it that. Yeah. Thank you.
Commissioner Leenstra, did you want to jump in? I just want to make sure that you're recognized.
No, thank you very much, but I'm good.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other thoughts, concerns, or questions from the Housing Authority? I'm seeing no further questions. I just want to say thank you for a fantastic presentation. I know we're not making any decisions today, but this is, you guys are doing great work. I think you're tasked with a tough job, and you guys went right to work and have done that well. I think that you guys are what I like to call a pocket of excellence, and we don't see enough of that. So good job, Rod, and your team, and everybody here in the room presenting. And with that, Gary, I don't see any further business. Do we have any further business before this?
You do not, no.
This board? And I will adjourn this policy session. Thank you, everybody, for coming.